It's Disruptive FM. Disruptive FM. Disruptive FM. Welcome to Disruptive FM, where business and culture collide. Sponsored by Microsoft and Branding Strategy Insider. With your host, Jeffrey Colon.
Okay, here we go.
Hey, what's up, everybody? It's another episode of Disruptive FM, number Sweet 16, for the week ending Friday, the 24th of August, 2018. Welcome. I'm Jeffrey Colon, your host for the next quarter hour as we dive into the culture of business and check out what's happening in marketing, media, tech, and popular culture. Turn it up to 11.
Here are this week's trending topics. Real life Wonder Woman.
Gal Gadot knows a thing or two about being judged by her looks before her talent. So it's fitting that she will be playing a Hollywood icon whose entire legacy is defined by just that. The Israeli actress will play a real-life Wonder Woman, Hedy Lamarr, in a Showtime limited series from the creator of The Affair. Variety magazine reports that a Hedy Lamarr series at Showtime is currently in the works, with Gadot nearing a deal to star in and executive produce the limited series about the classic Hollywood actress and genius inventor. Now, for those of you who think DFM is now Entertainment Tonight, hear us out. The technology you are using right now to listen to this program, if it uses Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, yup, invented by Hedy Lamarr. This leads us to our top trend of the week and one we're very passionate about. We might be produced by three dudes, but we're cognizant of the fact that diversity is key to finding the future. Why? Because of stories like Hedy Lamarr's. You see, if Hedy Lamarr was a man in the year 2018, she would be a billionaire. Born in Austria to Jewish parents, Lamarr fled an unhappy marriage in World War II for the United States, where she was scouted by an MGM executive and became a Hollywood actress known for her glamour and stunning beauty. But while she starred opposite Hollywood legends like Clark Gable and Spencer Tracy and went on to snag roles in Oscar-nominated films like Algiers and Samson and Delilah, her true passion and greatest tribulation was, you got it, science. Her patent for frequency hopping technology geared toward radio communications was the foundation for our modern wireless internet. And yet, sadly, she never received a penny. And this leads us to this week's quick take on why we need more women to be taken seriously by venture capitalists in the tech world. VCs are just looking at the numbers. But because of that, are they missing the next big thing? Well, as always, we turn to the subject matter experts for their take. Yulia Laricheva, CEO of Dream Nation, is the best person to speak to this. Yulia is heavily involved in the venture capital world and trying to get her own and other projects funded. In fact, Dream Nation also produces a podcast amplifying women and diversity-led ideas. Here's what Yulia had to say about this topic when we spoke to her earlier this week via Skype.
Only 2% of women-led companies were funded in the last few years. When it comes down to African-American women, it's 0.2%. So in order to rephrase that, 98% of capital goes towards non-women-run startups, dude startups. And 0.2% goes towards African-American women, who are also, right now, the largest group of entrepreneurs starting a business. And then when it comes to VCs, there are very few women VCs out there. I think only 7% of investors are women at the top firms, if you get to be a woman, right? You have to go through all of these little tiny hoops in order to do something and be somewhere and be considered good enough to even apply, to even raise your hand. And it's a culture everywhere around the world, actually, that is really not open to diversity. It's very homogenous. And I think with investing and all that and money, people are into investments because they like material things, right? They like money, they like status or whatever it brings, right? They're not in it for the social good of hey, I'm going to invest some money in this and this is really going to create some really amazing infrastructure. I have a friend in India right now from Emerson, and for the last 6 years, she's just been using $10,000 to build toilets for villages. Something so simple that no investor will touch, right? Like, oh my gosh, ew, this is so taboo, right? But this woman is single-handedly improving villages and creating infrastructures for towns to start flourishing. Because once you do that, that means you can start creating roads, there's some kind of a structure, and business can thrive in that town. So this woman is actually creating ecosystems, but it's not as sexy as Uber. It's not as sexy as Snapchat or Facebook or Google. She's not walking around wearing a hoodie, and she's not getting into the boardrooms, but she has a really brilliant business, which is like, hey, invest in these like portable toilets, and there's a monetization system you can do with it. But basically it's about social good, right? So how do we get companies to be interested in social good? How do you get them interested in helping women? How do you get them interested in society? And how do you get them to stop just getting rich for the sake of getting rich, right?
That was Yulia Laricheva, founder and CEO of Dream Nation, on what we're missing out in the here and now by not funding modern day Hedy Lamarrs. Big thanks to Yulia.
Trending topics on DFM. Password puzzle.
So you think ad blocking technology is going to ruin revenue for content creators and tech companies moving forward? Maybe, but there is another big dilemma brewing right now, and we have all done this but don't want to publicly admit it. Borrow a password from a friend to log into a streaming service and watch content. Hell, HBO even encouraged this for years without stopping abusers. But now the practice may be getting out of hand. An estimated 35% of millennials share passwords for streaming services like Netflix and Amazon Prime. This creates a unique problem for the services that want to get content in front of the addressable market, but are losing massive amounts of money. The bigger issue, many of these services still have a long way to grow and don't want to come down too harshly on the offenders. They even see it as a possible customer retention strategy. You are far less likely to unsubscribe to a service if you know that, by doing so, your grandma, your cousin Gary, and your one freeloading friend will also lose their service. But is this a recipe for disaster? When do these services cut off password sharing? One thing is becoming clear. The kids do not want to pay. They've been spoiled by free content for years. They don't want ads, but they don't want to pay, and this could upend how services monetize. The first move will, of course, be higher prices, which could lead to even more rampant password sharing. And if you cut down harshly on those sharing passwords, it could be a false positive, and services may lose out on word of mouth in the long run. Could this also lead to some kind of hybrid advertising model? We'll be keeping an eye on this, and I guess it's time we get our own Netflix account.
Trending topics on DFM. Zee Future Is Now.
Take a seat, millennials. Your time is up. In 2019, Generation Z, or Generation Z for some of our listeners, will account for 32% of the Earth's population, surpassing millennials at 31.5%, which means that those born after 2001 now have full influencer control. Why is this important? Because Gen Z is a return to Gen X, which is the small yet influential group of the population. Gen Z has only known a digital world, and yet they anticipate being more happy and optimistic than previous generations. Well, why is this? Mainly because soon they will vote, and many will vote out the old thinking. The other reason is they don't represent the me way of thinking that has dominated the cultural landscape the last 18 years. Instead, it is about us and we. Gen Z are keen on figuring out their own solutions to the benefit of the whole of society. Now, why is this important? Companies aren't ready for this at all. They've moved into a belief system that they can provide solutions and that connected well with Generation M. But Generation Z is very different. They don't want companies telling them what to do. They want to be a partner in that decision making. Chalk this up to how Gen Z has communicated. They grew up with social media. They enjoy group communication, and they understand the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. They also believe in the do-it-yourself spirit, which is what their parents in Gen X birthed with punk, hip-hop, and rave culture. The mass corporations that feel they can contribute to sell scaled solutions are in for a rude awakening as Gen Z rises more in influence and power. They should start thinking now about how they build creative templates that Gen Z can develop into a solution and not just push a finished product. Or otherwise, we may be saying to those corporations, "See you later."
You're listening to Disruptive FM with Jeffrey Colon.
Now, here comes the music.
It's Disruptive FM, the culture of business. I'm your host, Jeffrey Colon. You can connect with us on Instagram or Twitter at Disruptive FM. Connect with me personally on Instagram or Twitter at DJGEOFFE. Also check out our mixtape on Spotify, DFM Volume 1, BK Block Party. Disruptive FM is brought to you by Microsoft and Branding Strategy Insider. For more in-depth analysis, check out Microsoft.com/stories and BrandingStrategyInsider.com. Also brought to you by Iographer. Create better video. At Iographer, they make accessories for your mobile device to help you make professional videos. Learn more all about the products we use at DFM to make our videos at Iographer.com.
Disruptive FM presents...
Stop! It's the motherfucking remix!
Everything is a remix.
Personal branding is new. It only cropped up with the advent of social media the last decade or so. It also cropped up because of hustle culture and the gig economy. Right? Nope. Personal brands go back to many names, from Hector Boyardee, also known as Chef Boyardee, to Andy Warhol, Martha Stewart, and Richard Branson. Let's dissect some of these timelines. Muhammad Ali was an outspoken heavyweight boxing champ who conscientiously objected to being drafted to fight in Vietnam at a great personal cost. The impact? Ali helped turn public sentiment against the war. Today's star athletes, from LeBron James to Colin Kaepernick, risk their broad appeal to speak out about racial injustice. Richard Branson owned a record label, attempted the fastest nautical crossing of the Atlantic Ocean, and participated in several stunts that made him famous. The impact? His swashbuckling style doubled as good marketing for his Virgin brand. Amazon's Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk mimic Branson's playbook, including following him into space exploration. Beyoncé reaped the power she accrued in her career to break the old model for album releases, dropping Beyoncé on iTunes at midnight with only an Instagram post publicizing it. The impact? Beyoncé set sales records and a new standard for how stars launch new work, inspiring Drake and Taylor Swift to follow suit. Andy Warhol, the painter turned Campbell's Soup into art and brandified celebrities with silkscreen portraits of Marilyn Monroe, Elvis Presley, and others. The impact? Warhol's 1968 observation that, in the future, everyone will be world famous for 15 minutes, has become the rallying cry for aspiring social media influencers and reality TV stars. Everyone needs to think of themselves as a brand. What's your own micro equivalent of the Nike swoosh for you? To think personal branding is new because you see the thought leaders on LinkedIn embracing the practice doesn't mean it's new at all based on our examples. As we will say time and time again on DFM, everything is a remix. It's about that time to take a look at some simmering news items we have one eye on. It's a segment we call On the Radar.
Here's what's on our radar. Number 1.
There are now more places to buy a mattress in the United States than places to buy a Big Mac. And consumers could be the ultimate winner as the furious competition for their business generates deals, price transparency, and improved customer service. But the downside is a flurry of store vacancies and the threat of more financial collapse. The contest over who will provide Americans with a good night's sleep has turned into a brawl, with startups taking on more established online brands for market share. Casper, which is now the top online mattress retailer in the U.S., is a poster child for rapid VC-funded growth, whereas Saatva and Amerisleep have been pouring profits back into the business and growing slowly. Meanwhile, mattress firm is closing stores and trying to bolster their online offerings. To counter, Casper is opening physical stores with now 20 stores open. Why this battle in the first place? The mattress industry is worth multi-billions of dollars and used to be owned by department stores. Now you're lucky to even find mattresses in those stores as the niche specialists continue to carve up the turf.
Number 2.
What's worse, CEO pay or gender gap? A new law requiring CEO pay disclosure was expected to produce a backlash, as it revealed executives earned about 160 times more than what an average worker at the same company makes. And by some measures, this pay has increased 1,000 times since 1978, while the average worker wage has only risen 11%. But one thing has stayed the same for 20 years. Women take home 20 cents less for every dollar a man makes in the same position. What a way to divide and conquer.
Number 3.
Thriller loses top album spot. The Eagles, their greatest hits 1971 and 1975, just became the best-selling album ever, edging out Michael Jackson's Thriller for the top spot after the Recording Industry Association of America updated its sales figures recently. The Eagles album is now considered 38 times platinum, while Thriller is 33 times platinum. The RIAA now takes into consideration both physical and digital sales, along with streaming via platforms like YouTube and Spotify. The Eagles' hit Hotel California is not on the album in question, as that tune was recorded in 1977. The things you know. All right, that will wrap up this Sweet 16 episode of DFM. Big thanks to Yulia Laricheva of Dream Nation for joining us. You can connect with us by following me on Twitter or Instagram at DJGEOFFE. Follow Disruptive FM on Twitter or Instagram at Disruptive FM. And you can read more in-depth content via our 3 sponsors, Microsoft.com/stories, BrandingStrategyInsider.com, and iographer.com. Next week, we've got Afdel Aziz. We featured him in episode 10, but now we've really got him. And we're going to talk about how corporate social responsibility can't simply be a cliche anymore for big brands. It's going to be insightful. All right, for everyone here at DFM, thanks for checking us out. We appreciate your time. I'm Jeffrey Colon, and we'll catch you next week.
You've been listening to Disruptive FM with Microsoft Communications designer Jeffrey Colon. All thoughts are his own. Disruptive FM is produced in Los Angeles by Feeler Media.